We offer our deepest thanks and appreciation to all of you for participating in tonight's Erev Zikaron and Limud, marking the second yertzeit of our dear husband, father, and grandfather, Harav Yerachmiel Binyamin ben Harav Zalman Tzvi Witkin Zatzal, affectionately known by most as Jerry Witkin. It still seems somewhat surreal to be standing here talking about my father as an entity of the past. The tragedy that befell our family 2 years ago, the loss of Dad, has severely handicapped our family. The heartfelt grief we have felt has changed in its level of intensity, has somewhat tempered from absolute stabbing pain to numb sadness and overall emptiness. We are keenly aware of Chazal, who have taught us that there is a time to mourn and a time to go on with life. Being it is asur to be actually mourning and grieving for Dad, I suppose what gets us by at these times, when Dad really should be here, is by talking, retelling anecdotes, remembering the good old times, which brings on the laughter, but which always moves us to tears. If each yertzeit we can focus on a particular quality of Dad's and make it a goal to emulate, then we are doing definitely what would elongate Dad's memory and bring true brachot. In the mitzvah to build the Mishkan, Mikdash, in this week's Parsha, Parshat Terumah, Bnei Yisrael are charged with building a separate entity for Hashem so that he may dwell among them. The end of the pasuk is unexpected. The Mikdash is constructed not so Hashem could dwell in it, but that he can dwell among them, among Bnei Yisrael. A physical locale cannot contain a non-corporal entity, but when the people coalesce around that place, the Shekhinah is present. Our lives are constructed not around place, but around the people who dwell together with us in them. The tragedy and promise of our lives is that there is an all-changing cast around us. And so especially during this time period of Dad's yertzeit, I think about who made me what I am today. Thinking about the people that I first encountered in various stages of my life have truly defined the places I've been in. The loss of Dad, who did so much to define my world, has greatly diminished the Shekhinah around us and has left us feeling somewhat abandoned and alone. But the Shekhinah continues to grow fuller as our place fills with Dad's wonderful characteristics that are depicted in my siblings and self and our children. My parents' grandchildren, including Baruch Hashem, amazingly to date, 4 Yerachmiel Binyamins, only 2 years since his passing. The most recent born just 2 weeks ago to Zalman and Stephanie. These characteristics that have been encapsulated within Dad's Mikdash that he built can be categorized as those for the tzibur and those for his own family. All who knew Dad can attest to his being sameach b'chelko, which absolutely personified him. Dad never wanted anything nor asked for anything for himself. He truly derived intense pleasure and satisfaction by doing and giving to others. Being satisfied himself perhaps gave him more of a drive to help and work for others, so they could attain the oshut that Dad felt. And so the next quality would then be Hashomer Achi Anochi and Kol Yisrael Arevim Zelazeh, which in Dad's case would have to be juxtaposed with the Kol Mi She'oseh B'tzibur Be'emunah. It's what always rings through my mind. Dad was a powerhouse, a doer and an activist in the community. When it came to shul, he was always there, always involved in the Beit Knesset, whether being the Baal Tfilah, the Baal Koreh, the Baal Tokeya, making sure all 6 of us youngsters were beside him, davening correctly and displaying the right decorum in the Beit Knesset. How much we knew about that Dad did for others was amazing enough to us all, the time and the devotion he put forth. But after his Petirah, the phone calls, letters, personal stories and messages that came in to tell us how much more he had done for others that we never knew about, such as carrying books for a student on a daily basis to make sure he'd get them to class and for whatever things he needed, writing all sorts of letters to judges and authority figures, to aid friends, colleagues, and general people who were in difficult situations. If someone was wronged, Dad felt it himself in his heart, and he needed to help. To Dad, as all my siblings attested to in their hespedim, he simply did the right thing because it was the derech hayashar. He'd go out of his way to help out and ease the burden on somebody else. The small acts of kindness and chesed which multiply over his lifetime are a lofty sum of mitzvot. And indeed, it is something to constantly strive and do more for others, because that is simply Ben Adam's tafkid in this world, in Olam Hazeh, which is simply something Dad intuitized until the end of his life. Dad was always a hands-on father in every sense of the word. That was the other part of the mikdash that he built. With all that he continued to do for the community, he always had time for his family and gave to us all incessantly. His contributions to his family were truly endless, supporting our regular daily activities and encouraging the extracurricular. Dad was a jack of all trades, always helping with household chores, handiwork, and fixing up. I never recall Dad saying he was going to sleep, only that he was lying down. For he slept a few hours at night in between helping and doing more trumot for families and others. He was a big lamdan. He would spew forth beautiful divrei Torah at all family occasions. He was always prepared to say some Torah, even if the opportunity did not arise. He always had notes, which he kept for many years, which we found recently, piles of notes of divrei Torah that he planned to share and noted if he did say it or if he didn't get the opportunity to say it. It has been said that Yaakov Avinu lo met, that is, as long as his children and grandchildren kept a Torah way of life. That alone is a great accomplishment. Baruch Hashem, my dad and mom have accomplished, having presently 28 grandchildren with 22 living in Israel with their families. As we know, there are no coincidences. Dad's yertzeit falling on Parshat Truma will forever remind us of the truma that Hashem took from us and all the trumot that he gave to us and showered upon all who knew him. I only hope that we can live up to and can continue to build upon the trumot for the foundation that he laid down, to continue forth our own mikdashim until the rebuilding of the true Beit HaMikdash. Momentarily, my brother Avi will come up and give a siyum on Shisha Sidrei Nishma. But first, I'd like to ask a question, one that we could collectively be asking. What indeed is the relevance of marking the occasion of a yertzeit with a siyum? The question has been in my mind these past few days, and I'd like to suggest some possible responses and then go into the siyum and make a connection to Dad in particular. The special Kaddish said at a siyum is also recited on one other occasion, that of a levaya, of a funeral. This is the only form of Kaddish that mentions Tchiyat HaMeitim explicitly. And it seems appropriate for a levaya, but it's rather anomalous to be reciting it for a Kaddish at a siyum. After all, a siyum is generally associated with a happy occasion. In a couple of months before Pesach, those of you who are Bechorim might elect to attend a special siyum, enabling you to eat on what would otherwise have been a fast day. Many have a similar practice during the 9 days of holding a siyum when they could eat. It would enable them to eat meat, what would otherwise be a period of semi-mourning. So why do siyumim also seem to be linked with the most somber occasions of death and avelut? Perhaps it's the significance of the connection between siyumim and loss, between completing a section of learning and the completion of life, is that from the former we can help find an approach to the latter. What do we recite upon finishing a masechta? Hadran, we will return to you. You will return to us. Just as we expect to review our learning again, so too we hope that we will be reunited with our loved ones, the Tchiyat HaMeitim. Datan alan v'lo t'naseh. We are thinking of you, and you of us. We will not forget you, nor you us. Clearly, we understand that we are thinking of the Masechta that we learned, but how can we possibly say that this Masechta is thinking of us? Yet Chazal chose these words to emphasize that indeed, on some level, we can't rationally understand it, but the very Masechta we learned is having us in mind. The connection to a lost one is clear. We all have the opportunity to think about Dad, some just occasionally, while for some of us, many times, barely a moment goes by that he is not out of our thoughts. We can sometimes distract, but we can never truly forget. And therefore, just as we are thinking and remembering Dad, we are to understand that he is looking down at us and remembering us as well. This may seem as great a mystery and remote from everyday experience, the idea that a Masechta we learned is keeping us in mind. Yet I believe deeply that Dad is still watching over us and still communicating with us. And speaking of different Masechtot, one important point about the Hadran and the other word said after completing a Masechta is that no matter how long or how short the Masechta is, we learn the same formula is used. The same words and the same special Kaddish is used. There's no abbreviated version. of the Hadran for a shorter Masechta. It tells us that no matter the number of pages or how long it took us to complete, it is special and of tremendous value. So too, every life we mourn is of incalculable worth, regardless of whether the individual was granted length of days or so very few. But there are still so many memories left with us, as painful as it might be to bring them to mind. When we complete a Masechta, it is appropriate to ponder what we have learned from it. So tonight, as the Shisha Sigrei Mishnah were completed in Dad's honor, let's try to remember what we had the opportunity to learn from him in the 72 years that he was here on our earth. Avi Marie has given us so much, as it says in Mishlei, Parakaf Pasuk Zayin, Metalech B'tumot Tzadik, Ashrei Banav Acharav. The one who leads his life in the integrity of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, his children are truly blessed. So Dad, Hadran, may we return to you, to each other. Datan, we are thinking about you, may you think of us. Lotet Naseh, may we never forget you, Dad, and may you never forget us. May Dad's legacy and Dad's memory continue to be a source of comfort and strength to all of us who knew him, and may his neshama be a melitz Yosher for us and for all of Klal Yisrael. Amen. Amen.